Alright, so a while back I posted a video on Pivot Pro as a great Google Analytics alternative, and a lot of you responded that you really liked that video, so I thought, well, let's make another one. And this time we're gonna review Plausible. I already told you that I'm getting more and more interested in Google Analytics alternatives, not because Google Analytics is a bad program. I really like it. I work in Google Analytics day in, day out. I'm also not married to Google Analytics, and I think competition is healthy. The more competitors there are, the more the programs are forced to improve. And also there are just cases where, especially in cases where people are just using a couple of parts from Google Analytics, where I'm sometimes wondering if the investment in time and energy and money to implement and train people, if that's appropriate for those situations. So sometimes I'm just wondering, is there a simpler program that would suit this team better? And of course, legislation, we've already talked about it. Even though that Google Analytics is very non-intrusive when it comes to privacy, if you set it up right, it's very privacy friendly. Content for another video. Still, there are countries in Europe that decided to forbid the use of Google Analytics without consent at least. So you probably need some form of consent before you can use Google Analytics. And I can totally understand, especially if you have a lower traffic site, you probably want a different program because on different programs you can track everyone. So yeah, let's take a look at Plausible. Hey, and welcome to the channel. My name is Leon. This channel exists to help you make better decisions in your daily work using your analytics data. If you like what I'm doing, please click the like and subscribe buttons down below. That would really help me get this channel off the ground and get this video out to as many people as possible. Also, if you want to see more of these videos, there's a link in the video description to other videos just like this on Google Analytics alternatives. Let's dive in. So let's first look at the website. I have to say it looks beautiful, easy to use and privacy friendly Google Analytics alternative. That sounds very promising already. Let's read what they have to say. It's time to ditch Google Analytics. So they clearly are positioning themselves against Google Analytics. Google Analytics is frustrating to use, difficult to understand, slow to load, privacy invasive. So let's go over this. They're making some bold claims here. Frustrating to use. So for some people, yes, but I have to say this is not my experience, and I have a lot of customers that love working in Google Analytics because it gives them very precise information that they can use to make better decisions on their websites and their campaigns. Difficult to understand. It might be hard to learn, but I would say in many cases when you're a professional marketer, manager, when you're professional in working in marketing or communications, when you are investing a lot of time and energy into a website, it's worth to learn a good analytics tool. I'm not saying you should learn Google Analytics, but I do recommend that you learn a good analytics tool. And I kind of disagree that Google Analytics is difficult to understand because I think it's really worth it. It's slow to load. I don't like this, that they say it, because there have been countless times where a client had a slow site and the developer saw that there was one line in the page speed audit that talked about Google Analytics. So the developer decided to put the blame on the marketing team. And what I like to do in those situations is that I invite them to just remove analytics from the site or remove Google Tag Manager from the site and then just rerun the test. And 90% of the times the site is just as slow as before. I don't say that Google Analytics or especially Google Tag Manager cannot impact load times. I believe it can, but there are some cases where it does, and usually there's a problem in the account somewhere. I do not say that there are cases where Google Tag Manager is set up incorrectly and it slows down the site, but usually when customers come to me with a slow site, the root cause is not Google Analytics, not Google Tag Manager, but it's really the site itself. So this I find really misleading. I don't like it that they use this to promote their own product. And privacy invasive. This is also not true. So the Dutch Privacy Authority literally says on their site that the impact of using Google Analytics for privacy is so light that they permit the use of it without consent. That might change in the future, I don't know, but they literally say that on their site. So saying that Google Analytics is privacy invasive is just misleading. It's just not true. We're not even storing IP addresses, which many of the other programs do. So I don't have anything against negative comments on Google Analytics. As I said before, I'm not married to Google Analytics, but if you say something against a program like this, you need to come up with arguments, I think. So let's just go on. Simple analytics at a glance. I would really appreciate if they deliver on that promise. So then they go on here. Lightweight script that keeps your site fast. Our script is 45% times smaller. So let's first say that the lighter the better, like it's not a bad thing. So let's put things in perspective. I looked up the average page size of a mobile page nowadays, and the average page size is 2000 kilobytes. So even if Google Analytics would be 100 kilobytes, which is more than they say here, but let's say 100, then it's still just 5% of the weight, and Google Analytics does not block the page rendering. So the page load and the Google Analytics tag loads at the same time, and it doesn't affect each other. So again, if you remove analytics, you probably won't notice any difference. Also, saying this, like using this argument to save carbon emissions, for lack of a better word, I think it's misleading. Let's just compare this with, for instance, YouTube. Like 1 second of just regular HD video content is already over 600 kilobytes. So I believe on average, people are watching half an hour per day on YouTube. So on average, per person, we're already using over 1 gigabyte of data on the web. And here they are worrying about like kilobytes of data. So yeah, I just find this a little bit misleading. But let's go ahead. No need for cookie banners or GDPR consent. Yeah. So in some countries around Europe, this would be a big advantage. In Holland, that's not really the case, because for Google Analytics, we're not required to use a cookie banner. It's sufficient to just put it in a privacy statement somewhere that you're using Google Analytics. And I assume that you need to do that here as well. Track goals, conversions, revenue, campaigns. That's great. Invite team members, transparent. Yeah, smooth transition. Great. All right, let's go to the video from a couple of weeks ago where I set it up, and then come back and log in and see what the dashboard looks like. So let's go ahead and set up Plausible on my site. So this is my site, leonkorteweg.nl. I already have Google Tag Manager set up, and I want to use Tag Manager to set it up on my site. So I'm going into plausible.io, and I'm going to say start my free trial. I'm going to say my name here. So I'm adding a password, and I'm saying that I'm human. Now I'm going to start my trial. So I went ahead and took the activation code from my email, so I can activate it. It asks me for the naked domain without www, so this is leonkorteweg.nl. I'm gonna, time zone is okay. Add JavaScript snippet, so I paste the snippet in the head. So I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna say, I'm gonna add a new code. This is the program number 5, Plausible. So I'm gonna add it via a custom HTML tag, and I'm gonna say on every page. Initialization all page means at the very first start of the page load. So I'm gonna submit this, say add Plausible, publish, and now it should be on the site. So let's see what happens. Start collecting data, waiting for the first page view. Oh yeah, there it is. It's already collecting data. Let's see. So I have top pages, sources, goal conversions. Yes, I want to set up some goals. I have a couple of goals on my site. I have my contact form, which is the most important one. So let's go ahead and just fill out this form. This is the thank you page. So I'm gonna go into Plausible. I can do it by custom event or page view. It asks me for a page path. So I'm gonna say page path. I cannot fill out a name, so the name is just visit this page. It's okay. Also, I'm going into training. I'm gonna say a training availability request, test, add test. 0612212312. And I'm gonna fill out this form. Again, I have a thank you page that I can add goal via page view, and I can say training. So I already added 2 goals in Plausible. In GA4, I'm tracking some events. For instance, if somebody clicks on the navigation. So let's go ahead and check if Plausible can track events. Because in GA4, I already have some clicks. So for instance, on the navigation or on buttons, I'm already tracking some events. So I want to check if I'm able to do that in Plausible as well. So I'm gonna say Plausible event tracking. Go. Custom event goals, and here in the sidebar there's trigger custom events manually with a JavaScript function. So here it says for more specific tracking needs, this is probably the part that I need. So I need to change my tracking setup. So I need to change what I just published. I just need to change that to this part. And now let's go ahead and try to copy some of the events that I already have configured. So I have this navigation click event configured in GA4. So I'm going to try to copy this into my Plausible event. So I'm going to go ahead and say custom HTML. And I already see here that Plausible lets me just give a name. I cannot, for instance, give a name navclick and then also give some parameters underneath it. It's really simple, just a name. So if I want to track navclicks and I want to be able to see like what elements in my navigation are actually being tracked, I would need to do it like this, navclick, and then in brackets I'm going to say click text. So for instance, if somebody clicks home, this will say navclick and then in brackets home, which is fine, I guess. So the name is, I'm going to say navclick. Plausible event, there you go. And let's do the same with buttons. I'm going to just copy my button event from GA4 into Plausible. I'm going to do the same thing, custom HTML with a small piece of script. And I'm going to copy the Plausible function. And yeah, let's call it button click. And then in brackets, I can say the click text. So for instance, if somebody clicks this button, maak een afspraak, which is make an appointment, I will get this text in brackets. So button click and then brackets, maak een afspraak, which is fine, I guess. And then the name, I'm going to use the name in my title as well. So I'm going to hit save. And then one last thing that I like to do, I have a session duration script running. I already did a video on it. I want to try if I can use this in Plausible as well. So I'm just going to copy my GA4 event tag. I'm going to say 0503, I think, Plausible event. And then I'm going to do the same thing, custom HTML, script. I'm going to copy the event tag from the documentation. Now I'm going to say session duration, and then in brackets I want to use the amount of minutes. Let's save, because I forgot to copy the variable. So this is the variable that I use to get the amount of minutes. If I'm going over a certain threshold, for instance 1, 2, 3 minutes, it will give me 1, 2 or 3. So let's go into the session duration. So I want to say the amount of minutes, and then I say min after that. So it will give me session duration and then in brackets 1 min, 2 min, 3 min. I think that's okay. I'm going to call it session duration, hit save. And now let's just hit preview and check if this is working or not. So I'm going to connect it to my own site. Let's test the navigation. So I'm going to click the second button here. So it should be somewhere here. Yeah, I have all kinds of navclick events going out into different programs. Plausible event navclick. Yeah, it returns navclick and then in brackets the name of the button. Let's click a button, just this one. So I expect a button click event, plausible event. Yeah, there you go. Button click and then in brackets maak een afspraak. Yes. And the last one was the session duration, but I'm not going to wait for that. I'm going to assume that that works also. I'm going to say submit, add plausible event tracking, then hit publish. Oh, I can add a goal here. If people spend 3 minutes or longer, I want to track that as a goal also. I made an event called session duration and in brackets it returns the amount of minutes. So let's say I want to add a goal like this. This should work. And now it shows me the full name. So a workaround, if you would need full names as goals, you could set it up as events. Back to stats, page views. Does it show me already some events? No. Alright, that's how you set up Plausible. We're going to skip ahead in a couple of weeks just to see how the reports behave as soon as some data is coming in. I'm really looking forward to that part. Alright, so we're back. I'm going to log in. And if you log in, you get this screen where you see your sites. And if you click, you end up in a report. So I think by default it's 30 days, but I'm just going to select last 7 days. So what do we have? It starts with a big timeline. I like how it looks. It's prettier than for instance, Matomo, I think. Total visits, total page views, views per visit. So how many pages do people view on average? Bounce rate. So what's their definition of bounce rate? Plausible bounce rate. Yeah, so they have a good documentation. That's great. Bounce rate. Yeah, with a single page view. So it's the old definition. So Google Analytics also includes read time. So Google Analytics 4, at least, if you spend more than 10 seconds on a page, you're not calculated as bounce anymore. But here, you need to click to a new page. To be honest, I like the new definition in Google Analytics 4 a little bit better, but it is what it is. Visit duration. This is also probably calculated based on the amount of pages. Let's visit duration. So only the time for people that have more than one page. So one page, we default to 0 seconds. Sum of all session length divided by the number of sessions. Yeah, so here I think GA4 made a big step forward, because when you're on a page, on the background, they check if people are still active on that page, which makes these duration metrics a lot more reliable. Because 6 minutes, I think, is too high. Oh, 0 current visitors. I like that. So if I'm visiting my own site, this will jump to, oh, and then I can switch to a real time if I click on it. Yeah, 1 current visitor. Nice. So I believe this program has a couple of hidden features. I hope I'm not going to miss anything. So I can filter the entire report by the homepage, for instance. This is very easy. So let's say campaign. Yeah, great. I don't have campaigns, of course, but that would be really useful. The goal, contact. So maybe 30 days. Yeah, I have 2 conversions. Where do they come from? Entry page. All right, let's go ahead. I'm just going to remove the filter to keep it simple. Top sources. So I have direct and Google. I'm wondering what would happen if I would have like Google campaigns and Google organic, if they would show up here as well. Direct none. And if I click on it, I also really like that. It's really intuitive. If I click on it, it takes me to sources Google as a filter, and then I see the entry pages here. So far, so good. Yeah, it's intuitive. You don't need training for this. Entry pages, top pages, exit pages, countries. So you have a map, countries, regions, cities. Oh, and you can also details. This I find maybe a little bit too simple. So you have visitors, bounce rate, visit duration, but where are my conversions? Do I need to go down here? Say this? Yeah, if I click conversion, I can see where the people come from. But if I just want to analyze my sources and I click details, I don't get my conversions here. I would like if they added here. That's what my first and only complaint up to this point. All right, let's go on. Devices, so browser, operating system, size, good, and conversions. So this is going to be a very short video. So this program feels very accessible. It looks good. I think it looks a bit better even, and it's more accessible than a program like Matomo, for instance. Let's look, is there something missing in this program? And then I'm just going to do this from memory. I think the first complaint that I already had was just, I would love this sources section to be a little bit more elaborate, at least to show conversion data there. That is one of the big reasons that the people would use analytics. The main thing that this program does really well is just monitoring the basic and simple metrics on your site. So you can just check every day, every week, every month, what's the performance of my site. But then if you find a problem on your site, so you see a decrease, for instance, in conversions, that's usually the point where you go into the data and try to find what the cause is. I think that this program would be very limited in that area, because you're not able to make, for instance, user segments. It would be good for monitoring, but not so good for elaborate diagnosis of problems on your site. Also, I miss e-commerce reports. So if you have a web shop, let's find out if there are any e-commerce reports. Yeah, so e-commerce is here. So you have goal conversions, e-commerce revenue tracking. So you're probably only able to track the revenue, but you're not able to track the performance of the separate products. So usually if you have a web shop, You want to see what the performance are of the different product categories, how many products were added to the cart, removed from the cart, things like that. That's not possible. They do have a funnel analysis. It's down here below. Funnels, follow the visitor journey from entry to conversion, and then you need to set it up. I haven't tried it yet, but they do have a funnel analysis, and I think that's really useful. Also, let's talk about how Plausible calculates unique visitors from total visits. They say on their site that they don't use cookies. They have an entire page where they explain what they do. Also really nice documentation, so that's a plus. They say that they don't use cookie, but they use something like a daily salt, the website domain, the IP address, and the user agent, and then they hash that, so they mangle it. You cannot revert it back into the separate components, but then they use that number to calculate the unique visitors from the day. So let's say you have Plausible on your site and I visit your site, then my daily salt, my website domain, my IP address, and my user agent is sent to Plausible in a hashed format. If I, within 24 hours, return to your site, Plausible will recognize me and calculate me as the same unique visitor. But if I go beyond 24 hours, I'll be counted as a second unique visitor. I think that's a downside. I don't blame them for using that approach. I think it's very creative to not use cookies, but to use a different approach. But they are only storing it for a day, and I think that's a bit limiting. So for instance, Google Analytics cookie expires after 6 months, but then a lot of modern browsers, for instance Safari, just drops the cookie after 7 days. I think 7 days is would be a nicer term. But of course they are positioning themselves as a very privacy friendly, and the shorter the time, the more privacy friendly it is, I guess. Let's also look at event tracking, because I like to use programs like this to improve sites, get more insight in how people use the site. Click tracking, how does that work? I have set up some events, but I don't find them here. So let's look into the documentation. Custom event goals, I can use it for goals. Custom events count towards your billable monthly page views. And then it explains how I can set it up. I've already done this. It's outbound link tracking. Okay, so you have some things, outbound link tracking, file downloads, 4 pages. A couple of things that you can do, but you have to enable that by changing your snippet. So you have to go back to your developer to enable that, or do that in Google Tag Manager. But I made a couple of events, for instance this Plausible nav click, and then I sent the name of the button that was clicked in the navigation. I've sent that to Plausible, but for some reason I cannot find it anywhere. If I miss something, please let me know in the comments down below, but I believe there's no real good event tracking report available in Plausible. Alright, to round out this video, do I like Plausible? Yes and no. Let's start with positives. I think Plausible did a really great job in keeping it accessible and easy to use. You don't need training for this. I think I can see almost everybody logging into it and immediately understanding what they're looking at least at a general level. And that's really positive because it makes data accessible to more people, and I think that's really great. Also, I think it looks great, it's accessible, but still I would not recommend to use Plausible as your only analytics platform in most professional applications. And the reason is this: if you invest a lot of time, energy, money into your site and also into a lot of online campaigns, then you also need some platform that lets you diagnose problems and lets you find out specifically where the opportunities are, where the pain points are in your site, to be able to make better decisions on those budgets and on that time. And I think Plausible, while it's accessible to a wide audience, it does not let you make those specific diagnoses. It just lacks too many functionalities that you would get in a mature analytics program. However, you could use this alongside to another program to make data more accessible. And I think that's actually a great use case for Plausible. Also the pricing, I don't know by heart, but I think it's very reasonable. And what I do not like, and I already talked about it in the video, is that they have many misleading claims about Google Analytics on their site. And I think they should do a better job at that. But alongside of that, I think it has its place. It's a great program. Maybe in the government sector, especially there where you're not really performance oriented, maybe this would find its way in that sector. All right, enough of me rambling. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you have any value out of this video. I try to stay as neutral and speak really from my perspective. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to comment down below. Also click like and subscribe. That would really help me get this channel off the ground. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video. All right, goodbye.